And welcome, Edgar. Thank you very much for being with us on our podcast. Firstly, thank you not only for the work that you're doing, but the work you're actually doing with your students. I've been lucky enough to meet some of them and listen to some of your projects. And it's very impressive, the subjects in the areas that you are covering. So thank you both for your amazing work, but also what you're doing with your students. So rather than me talking too much, why don't you perhaps introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the university?
Sure. Thank you very much. First of all, it's a great pleasure to be here. I appreciate the window for me to come and speak a little bit about that. So as Karen mentioned, my name is Edgar Rojas, and I am an assistant professor here at Texas A&M within the College of Performance, Visualization, and Fine Arts. Now, I think that throughout the presentation, I'm also going to be referring to a institution or a lab that we have that is called the Laboratory for Ocean Innovation, which is within ocean engineering here at Texas A&M. So right now I'm kind of like in a project that blends both my knowledge from like visualization in my college with this Laboratory of Ocean Innovation, which it's entirely sponsored currently by ABS, the American Bureau of Shipping. Right. So throughout the presentation, I'm going to be kind of like blending a little bit both of both ends as I talk about the different topics. Right. But so my kind of like my core self is I am a researcher, right, and I'm a researcher specifically in the areas of augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, like all the different realities that we have at this point. And the way in which I always explain my work is that I believe that these technologies are meant to become the user interfaces of the future, but we are not there yet, right? And so with my work and what my lab does is look at what are the technical like capabilities, user considerations, and overall applications that we need to develop in order to get there, right? So my long-term vision really is I want to take these technologies out of the lab and put them into the hands of the people, the ones who actually need them, right? And that can be like by people, it's very broad in here, right? It can be like the guy that owns like the grocery store, like next door, right? But it can also mean like big institutions like, I don't know, like Texas A&M, right? If they need to incorporate these technologies to improve the way that they teach a particular subject, or if you have people that I don't know have like limited vision, for instance, right? So how do these technologies need to be adapted to account for every possible user that we can have, right? So that's a little bit of who I am, and I have right now 6 great like PhD students, as Mark was mentioning. So I appreciate that. I will definitely tell them that you send them the regards.
Please do.
And yeah, so our lab is the Laboratory for Extended and Mixed User Realities, which is like the acronym is LEMUR. So overall, we look into these areas to make these technologies more accessible, more widespread for the end users.
Amazing. And I think we'll come back into some bit more detail and talk about some of the work and kind of your vision and mission. But maybe I can start with, you mentioned ABS, American Bureau of Shipping, who've been a long time area member, and also yourself at Texas A&M. But can you tell a little bit why the kind of university joined the area and what you're kind of hoping to achieve through the area membership?
Sure. I will say that there's almost like a short-term goal and a long-term goal, right? So in short-term, like as you mentioned, ABS has been involved in the area for a while, right? And as we started this project with them, they were like, well, as an industry, we're part of this like big effort of driving these technologies forward, right? So that's kind of when we got introduced to the area, and upon like talking with you and like doing a little bit of research on our own, right? The amount of depth and content that the area has been achieving throughout the years it's impressive, right? So there is a lot of documentation and good starting points for almost anybody that wants to start going along these routes, right? So um, like within this world like that evolves so fast, like it's hard to keep track of everything that's happening and who is doing what and so on, right? So being able to have kind of like a hub in which you can get together with people that are like-minded, that are interested in driving this field forward, has been amazing, right? So if I need to provide like a more concrete example, for instance, as we were like as we started this project with ABS, right? Um, we're interested in putting AR wearables into like the workers, like for instance, workers that are like in a warehouse or workers that are in like in a vessel, like across the ocean, right? But we want to make sure that these devices are like safe enough before we put them in action, right? So part of what we had to do, first of all, was okay, what are the industry's like current standards for this? What are the recommendations of, yeah, please do this, or no, don't do this, like this headset works well in these conditions, and this one does not work well in these conditions, right? So just having that starting point by accessing all the documentation and all the works and workshops that the area has been great, at least for us. They really provide us a very solid point to start. Um, Big picture, however, right? It's not only about like taking, right? Like we want to be able to give back sort of like part of that knowledge that we have been developing thanks to the area, right? So um, we want to, for like really, as I was mentioning, we want to improve these technologies and make them useful for like the end users, right? So we want to make these lasting connections with the industry, right? And with people that are actually deploying or want or are interested in deploying these technologies into their workers, into the field. Like there's just so many possible combinations, right? So now that we have been connecting with the area, right, we really want to establish those like lasting industry connections, right? And overall, right, as well, like the college that I am part of in A&M, it's fairly new, right? This is actually our, well, officially as a college is the first year, but as an entity, we have been together for 3 years, which is still like a short amount of time.
Mm.
And I can give you like details of like how it got created later if you want. But we currently have, I will say, about 5 professors that are involved in different aspects of AR, VR technologies, right? So our goal is really to position Texas A&M at the forefront of AR research. And you can only do that if you are, well, hanging you out, right, with other experts in this field, and people that actually know what's happening, that know what the real problems are, and that they are willing to collaborate with you to be able to make there. So
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Edgar. Normally, I'd ask the next question about the kind of university's missions and vision, but I think you've done a really good job of articulating that. So maybe we can just think a little bit, or you can give some examples of how you're actually delivering that vision. Maybe a couple of the projects, or maybe some of your research. So put just but meat on the bones, if you like, in terms of the actual great work that you're doing.
sure, and I appreciate that for sure. I will say that currently I am gearing. Well, let's start a little bit behind, right? So the the overall idea of my college, right, is to be able to blend technology with the end user, right, with an actual human, right? It's not like traditional like computer science, for instance, in which you are doing a lot of testing to improve the speed of an algorithm by like 4 seconds, right? That's great on its own, right? That's not what at least I do or the college itself does. So it's really more this connection of okay, how is it actually a human, a person, right? And it's not only a human, right? It's an actual user that will wear these technologies. Think about it, right? So is it easy to use? Is it understandable? Like, is it getting in the way of that person performing their tasks, right? So with that in mind, AVS approach, ocean engineering, and us because as I was mentioning at the very beginning, right, they are interested in pushing forward this next level of maritime research, right, and they created a structure in which they have like several projects, and we are one of those. I think we have 9 projects at this point, right, like looking into different like elements of like alternative like fuel sources and so on, right. But within the one that I am a part of is, as I was mentioning before, we want to make sure that these devices are safe, right. And so for instance, at the very beginning of the project, and we have been like very fortunate that the project is really interdisciplinary, right. So one of the first things that we had to do was to go to the port of Houston, port of Galveston, and we got into one of the like training ships that was in there, right. And we took like 360-degree like pictures of this space, and then we were able to recreate it in our lab in College Station, right. So we have now kind of like this simulation, or almost like a physical / digital twin of that specific room, right. And then we put like sensors all over the place of this space, right. And so through that, we're asking people to complete different tasks, and as they do these tasks, we're able to evaluate: are you like bumping your head as you're going through like a hatch door? Are you stepping on a pipe? Are you like tripping as you like try to get into this area? So that setup is really allowing us to see, okay, is the fact that you are wearing or not these devices affecting your ability to perceive your environment, perceive your surroundings, right? And like ultimately, the idea was to address the question: are we ready to put these devices onto a worker that it's like in a vessel, right? And long story short, like we still need a lot of work to be able to be there, right? And so with what we're trying to do here at our lab is, what are the components that we need, that we have already identified that we need, that could potentially translate into solutions that would assist workers as they're performing their tasks to ensure their safety, right? For instance, I have one of my students right now is working on, as you are walking around this area, right, in this simulated environment, can the headset detect where you are, right, and let you know, hey, you're approaching a sharp edge, hey, you're approaching like this hatch door, and like because of all the documentation that we have, we know, okay, it's very common for people to bump their head as they're walking through a hatch door, or it's very similar, very common for people to like trip in like housekeeping stuff that it's like laying around, right? So we were developing smart solutions for the headsets to identify these things and let the user know, hey, like there's a highlight around the edge of the hatch door. Be careful about that, right? So that's within that project, right? But we're also very interested in. I have, for instance, another one of my students is in looking into the area of remote like coaching or remote like refining someone's movements, right? So imagine that you are far away, like in an asset in the middle of the ocean, right? It will be very time consuming to send someone that has all the expertise, like an actual like mentor, an expert, all the way there, when you already have people that know how to do the things, or that, roughly speaking, know how to do the things, right? But they don't have all the necessary expertise, right? But a lot of those things are not just do this, do that based on what I'm seeing. A lot of those require actually like feeling what you're doing, or like how much pressure you're using, right? Or and so, but there is no way of remotely transmitting like a subtle like movement correction, right? So he is like looking into an approach of like, by combining AR visuals and a little bit of right now he's using like musculoskeletal stimulation, kind of like those patches that you put when you're like need like a massage type of thing, to see if by combining those two inputs, like the tactile input and the visual, can you give the person the idea that someone is there, like subtly like moving your arm around, right? For instance. Um, so like overall, like as I was mentioning, right? So we want to make these technologies more like widespread and assist people in their day-to-day like tasks and routines, right? Whether that's in the industry, whether that's in their personal lives, through these technologies, right? We really believe that it's more to them than just entertainment, for sure.
I couldn't agree more. And I think there's some amazing kind of insights to some of the challenges with XR, and you focus a little bit on the enclosed space and you're having the right information, but also where your focus may be on something else, which is really great. But also some of the kind of solutions. And I guess that's, if it's okay, kind of some of the insights that you've learnt through doing some of this work. And I know it's work in progress, and my apologies. I'm asking for stuff that's going through your process, but maybe one or two things that spring to mind that you think like, wow, we've been really insightful there, or that it's something which, would really help the industry. I'd love to get your thoughts on some real nuggets.
Sure. Well, as you were mentioning, it really is work in progress, right? But as we have been doing this work, the more that we do, the more we realize it's not only and it's not only about XR, right? There are just so many things that we need to take into account right now.
Yeah.
But one important thing that we're moving towards creating, and in fact, I actually have a meeting later today to discuss with another professor that is interested in assisting us with this, is I've been talking about this ability of ensuring safety, or like knowing, like, how aware are you of your environment, right? But so far, that is very subjective, right? Like you can ask people, hey, how did you feel after going through this, right? Or like how distracting you were by the AR visuals, for instance, right? But there is no way of saying, okay, at this particular moment in time, you like the probability that you had of getting into an accident was, I don't know, like 70% or 60%, right? And the reason why there is nothing like this is because there are so many factors that can influence into that, right? Like something as, okay, how is the environment, like housekeeping stuff, or like sharp edges and something like that. There are also factors like how fast are you moving through it? Are you like walking backwards as you're using these devices, right? And of course, there are other things that we have no idea, right? So maybe you like had a fight with your partner in the morning, and now like you're like all distracted, right? There are definitely things that we cannot account for, right? But we are looking into what can we account for, right? And so what we're moving towards now is to develop these specific solutions to try to address what we can, right, while providing like a quantifiable like metric of, okay, like right now this is, as I was mentioning, if you were to take a snapshot of everything at the second, I don't know, like at 2 minutes and 30 seconds after you started working, right, what is the probability that you will get into an accident, right? In terms of so that number is one thing that we're working currently trying to compute, right? And it, as I was mentioning, it has to do with intrinsic behaviors of like how fast are you moving? Are you walking backwards? How fast are you turning around? It has to do with the environment, right? Like, are you close to a surface that is sharp, right? Or is it behind you, right? And you haven't noticed it yet, right? The ability, and one of the great things of these devices is that because we have like further like cameras, we can do vision processing, right? And even things that you are not currently looking at, we might be aware that they are there. And especially if you consider that we might have like a digital like twin of the space in which we are working, right? We will know at any given point where you are in that space, and therefore you can let people know, hey, this is happening, be careful, and so on, right? Another big aspect of these devices, particularly when we're talking about like optical see-through AR devices, is you're putting this like 3D graphics into your field of view as you are performing your tasks, right? But that on itself can be distracting, can be dangerous, right? The place in which you position your graphics might occlude, like, I don't know, like the sharp edge that you want to prevent, right?
Yeah.
So we also want to equip the devices with a more kind of like understanding of the environment, of the relationship of the user, the worker, with the environment at that particular point. And so, for instance, if I know that the person is working with this machine, then first of all, don't put me a panel right in front of my face, right? Because
Right.
I'm definitely not going to be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
But can it be smart enough to, like, the positioning of those like virtual panels? Can they be smart enough to know, okay, like this person is working with this device, maybe I should move that panel aside, so that you still get the information but not in your way, right? And as you move around the environment, there are particular moments in which you might not require all the information, right? So there is not that big of a benefit of having the entire panel, right? So maybe it's about like putting it like as in screen space, almost like as something like a monocular display
Yeah.
would work, right? Or maybe just like don't show the visuals at all, right? So
Yeah.
what is this like transition? When do we need really to get the information and so on? It's also one thing that one of my students is looking at right now. So it's right now the point in which we are is we want to develop this solutions that I was describing, right? So we're working in these three axes, right? Like the one of the safety of the user interfaces, the one of understanding the environment and notifying the person about hazards around, and
Yeah.
also the one of interpreting the user behavior, of like how fast are you moving and so on. And so we're working towards developing, and we have some prototypes at this point, that we can integrate into, like, we're working right now with, like, we have multiple devices that we're using. It's not it's, because we want the solutions to be like device agnostic. And in fact, what we really are focus is not on describing this of coding a solution itself, but like providing the guidelines of like,
Yeah.
how do you need to do this, right?
Yeah.
And so so we have these different directions, but like overall, like, in addition to having the solutions, we want to be able to compute this notion of like how likely are you to get into an accident, right? And so by
Yeah.
having that number, right, then we can really evaluate, are these solutions actually helping, and not only these solutions, but like anything else that you might want to add as an AR graphic, as a computer vision approach, anything, right? Then we will have a closed loop to evaluate, okay, this is what you're adding, this is how it's affecting, so improve it or not. But like we're going to be able to close this loop, and in that, having a tangible way of knowing how big of an impact is your AR solution causing in the actual worker, right?
Amazing, and it's fascinating listening to all. Edgar, I try and summarize it all, which I'm not sure I'm going to do it justice. But we've talked a lot within the area that actually quite a lot of the user experience is still coming from a 2D world. We're replicating what we have on phones and on PCs. What I would say is you're taking that step to say that we need to design and have experience which is in a spatial 3D environment. It needs to be aware of our surroundings. It needs to help us, do the best things, but also not do the bad things, in terms of being able to move around. And, I think one of the best things I can say is that you're actually beginning to look at and research designing solutions for an augmented reality world, rather than taking designs that are 2D and trying to stick in the 3D world. So hope that at least did a little bit of justification of the work that you're doing. So maybe a final kind of last quick question, and really about your insights, aside from obviously joining the area, what advice you would give to companies kind of starting out with Enterprise XR? You've been doing lots of interesting things. What would be, say, your 2 bullet point things that you would say to them if they're starting out? And again, that could be a provider of the technology, or it could be an end user of the technology. You can choose which one.
That's a great question. Um, if I have to pick two, right, I will say, and just by the area existing, that like because of the mission and vision of the area, it covers what I'm about to say, right? But first of all, like you don't need to reinvent the wheel, right?
Hmm.
Like there's a big community that has been working in these topics, like-minded, right? Um, that might already have a solution to a problem that you're facing right now, right? So you don't have to spend all your resources in recreating something that you very well could have like spoken with someone and like, hey, like I really are interested in doing this, right? What recommendations can you give me, or can we like create some sort of like a partnership and so on, right? Um, I think a lot of within this field, and again, this is why I believe that the area is impressive, right? Everybody wants to get into the AR wave, right?
Hmm.
Um, but a lot of times is they start thinking about it. Okay, how can we do it and make it be our own, right? And I see the impact on that, right? But in a world that it's so like interconnected, uh, it's better to work in a team, right? And that kind of like
Right.
leads to my second point, right? Like you don't have to work in a silo, right? Like we
Mm.
have this big community um, of again like-minded people that are interested in really pushing the boundaries of AR technology, right? So um, share your findings, like be part of this
Mm.
community.
Yeah.
You like you will be surprised of how many times people are, because again like, these are people that are passionate with this field, right? So they
Yeah.
really want to share what they're doing, they really want to work together. The area has like a lot of different like committees that people can become a part of. That I don't know, like if you are more interested in like the safety aspect of AR, right? So there is a committee that meets regularly to discuss about that. If you're more interested in, I don't know, like the human factors or the security, like cybersecurity aspects of this, there is a committee for that, right? So, so really like be a part of a community, like get involved. I think that there is a lot of benefit in working together to tackle this, right? So, and now as a final thing that I just thought about, thanks to the way that these technologies are evolving, like you no longer need to be a core computer scientist or a
Mm.
core like computer vision researcher, right? To do meaningful things in here, right? Because this field is so interdisciplinary, right? You can put like your 5 cents into this whole topic with your expertise, like
Mm.
it's I think everybody will bring a very valid point to the table, and so like don't feel that because your field is, I don't know, like nursing or education, right? You are not gonna be bringing valuable insights to the equation, right? I think that everybody, again, with a field that is this interdisciplinary, we really need to hear all the perspectives. So
Mm.
so that's also part of why you should be getting involved with this, right? Because we essentially need to hear your voice as well. So.
And I think that's a great way to end, Edgar, in terms of, augmented reality will be the next computing paradigm. We don't have to say it. The leaders of the tech companies are saying that and spending a huge amount of money, but it does mean, and there's an opportunity for everybody to get involved. So I think that's a really great way to finish up this fascinating talk. Edgar, thank you very much indeed. Look forward to your continued support and insights for the area, and keep up the great work, and your students as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time today. Have a great day then. Thank you.